Today I'm joined by our good friend, Ed Tooley. He's a sports nutritionist and he's our go-to guy for any questions that we've got about difficult clients or any specific nutritional questions, advanced supplementation, etc. But I'm going to let him introduce himself because he's going to do it much better than me. So Ed, tell us a little bit about you and your background and what we should know, really.
Cheers, Cam. Yeah, I've been in the field for just over 10 years now. When I say the field, working in elite sport with athletes. So predominantly team sports, working in rugby league, rugby union, football, but then also working with individual athletes as well. Currently, I'm leading the nutrition program for England Rugby League. So should be going into the World Cup this year, which is currently up in the air. We'll wait and see what happens there. Also working with Jordan Taekwondo. So we've just had a successful Olympics with Salah getting a silver, and then also I've just joined the City football group, so the group that own Man City, but working with their wider teams, so teams that are out in India and other places, parts of the world.
Fantastic.
So I guess that,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to say on top of that, I got some individual clients, whether they be amateur athletes or just clients looking to be healthier or lose some weight, etc. And then working with you guys.
Cool. So I guess a lot of your stuff at the moment is been online then due to the pandemic. A lot of it's been this type of thing, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. It's gone from being sort of in that team environment and seeing clients on a face-to-face basis to adapting to having to be on Zoom 24/7 and speaking to people by phone and trying to judge things without necessarily having that physical measure or speaking to them in person.
Yeah, but it obviously opens up a lot of opportunity with, people speaking to people all around the world. So it sounds like you're dealing with Jordan and different countries. So it makes that a little easier, right?
Exactly. It's just almost common practice now. So it has given me the ability to work with the likes of those guys. So yeah, it's good.
Perfect. Well, I mean, here we are on a Zoom call rather than recording it in an actual room. So you're up north somewhere and I'm down south, but here we are. So the subject of today is going to be alcohol. The reason we talk about, you might see in our branding as a company, like our messaging truth. Obviously, we deal with a lot of business leaders and people that work in the city and in finance and law. And as kind of a byproduct of that job role, that seniority, there is a lot of alcohol that comes into play. You've got things like, being taken out by clients, so entertaining, being taken out for dinners and, traveling to different countries for meetings, whenever that starts again. The social element, people that are in these senior roles like to hang out with other people in senior roles and network. And it's a big part of our clients' life. And I'm sure people watching this video as well, this conversation today, would like to understand a bit more about, how they can deal with alcohol, the positives and the negatives. But us as a company, I know you're very similar in your kind of take on, alcohol and its pros and cons. We're not kind of people that tell you can't drink. It's more of something that's part of everybody's life. I like a glass of red. I'm sure you do on the odd occasion, Ed. So how do we look at it from firstly a positive point of view? What are the positives of drinking? And also not going down the route that many personal trainers and many nutritionists go and say, well, just don't drink, and actually look at it and look at the not alcohol as an issue, but just something that people do and how we can, use it to get people results despite the fact they drink. So let's maybe start with the positives of alcohol. So I'll let you just have a kind of a talk about that subject.
Yeah, do you know what? I think you just highlighted quite a few important things there. And I think probably where you mentioned that how some PTs just say don't drink alcohol. I think when I was a young nutritionist, I kind of fell into that category of just, well, it's not great for you, so don't do it. And maybe it's a little bit different in the elite sports world because it probably is easier to be restrictive like that. And, there would be scenarios where with certain professional sports teams, we almost have a collective agreement within the squad that, right, we're going to really focus on training and competition over this period. And then we'll have a bit of a team social here and it gives people something to focus on. But obviously when we look into the business world and the everyday sort of Joe Blogs, world, it's a lot more difficult to be that restrictive with like you said. I think the key word you said was social element. I think, alcohol does play a role within most people's lives. And I think there are pros. You said about the pros and cons. I think there are benefits of alcohol, or at least the social situation around it. Nutritionally, we can move on to that. There's not many great things, but it's actually, I think the social element can be really important, and how, if you're looking at someone that's really focused with their training and everything, you might actually get better out of them if they've had that one night with their mates where they really let their hair down on a Friday or a Saturday, etc. They're then going to focus on working harder during the week to reach their goals. Whereas if they haven't had that social element and they feel almost as if they're restricted by this diet plan and training plan, they may not be enjoying things as much, and you probably won't get the best out of them. So yeah, I do think there can be some pros. It's just, obviously, we do need to be a little bit careful when it comes to frequency of it and quantity of it, etc. We just need to be a little bit clever around that.
Yeah, I think us as a company, that's kind of our approach to getting people results. So we have a weight loss, 6-week weight loss program, and if you're doing something that's condensed and something that's over a short period of time, chances are, if you want to see a real change in that short amount of time, you're going to have to manage your alcohol levels. When you're looking at a client, we find over 52 weeks, it's much easier to factor in, like you said, a bit like the sportsmen and women, if they've got a social end of the month. It's a little bit like if you're looking at a client over a year, and they can let you know, like, I've got this holiday coming up, I've got this big event coming up, I've got this barbecue's a big one at the moment. So if we can factor that into the program, that's not a problem. But like you said, if you're looking to get results and it's over quite a condensed period of time, you really need to, and we have posted a bit about this in the past, is that you're going to have to restrict because it's obviously the calorie content of alcohol really is difficult to factor into a weight loss program, especially when it's over a short period of time. So yeah, 100%, the social element is a big part of it. And we'll do it. We'll go to a barbecue and we'll have a glass of red or a beer. I suppose the bit we'll talk about in a little while is, how do you deal with that? How do you go for a barbecue and still get results, or go on holiday for a week and come back the same weight that you went in at, which is a real kind of issue for people, me included as well. So let's go down the negative route of alcohol. So obviously, we spoke about the social side of things, but obviously with your expertise, it'd be great to understand, what are the negative repercussions of drinking from a weight loss point of view, from a health point of view, and all the other different elements you can kind of think of.
Yeah, I think, when we look at alcohol, I think firstly, you've already touched upon it there. You've got the calorie content. So if someone's, even if they're just in a training routine where they just want to maintain their weight, but especially those that are looking to lose weight, you've got the calorie content. We consume carbohydrates, proteins, fats. They'll go towards our muscle building. They'll go towards fueling our body for both activity and exercise. But alcohol, we've just got that 7 kilos per gram. It sits between the carbs and proteins and then the fats, but there's not a lot we can do with it. So you've got the extra calories, and obviously it comes down to how much we actually consume as well. Are we just having, just a few drinks or a small quantity, or is it going to be, an all-day session where we're drinking beer from sort of midday onwards and then move on to shorts, and it just cascades from there, sort of thing. But then there's also the knock-on effects of it. I think if we stay on calories for now, you've also got what the sort of alcohol can affect our judgment calls on food in and around that. We've all probably at some stage picked up a burger or a kebab on the way home from a night out. Yeah. But it's if we're frequently out drinking sort of large amounts, and then that's influencing our food choices on the way home, and even our nutrition the next day when we're hungover. You know, people having a fry up or getting a McDonald's sort of thing for breakfast, then the overspill of these surplus calories can just keep on going. And if we're doing that a few times a week, it's really adding up. So we can, like you said, we can sort of work around a set event and say, right, we can, you know, manage your nutrition or manage your exercise around a certain event. But if you're doing it too frequently, then these calories are just building up beyond what we're able to manage.
So just to take away from what you just said there, just to kind of hammer home the point to people. So would you say that if you are trying to lose weight over, you know, a 30-day, 60-day or 90-day period, you know, condensed period of time, and you're drinking, you know, 3 or 4 drinks 2, 3, 4 times a week, would you say it's massively reducing your chances of achieving your goal?
I think, yeah. I think I've always referred to those as the ones and twos. It's not like a night where you're getting drunk, but the ones and twos always add up. And I think when you're on that sort of set period of time where you're looking to lose weight, you are struggling, because even if we factor it into your calories, what calories are we going to have to reduce to factor in the alcohol? Are we going to drop your protein that's trying to maintain your muscle mass and keep you feeling full with its satiety? Or are we going to drop your carbs, which are going to help fuel you for your exercise session? So things are going to get impacted there. Moving away from calories as well. Some of the effects of alcohol is, you know, it affects something called protein synthesis. And when we look at protein synthesis, that's basically sort of the modeling of the muscle post exercise. And that's basically your adaptation and recovery. So if we're drinking at the wrong time, or we're drinking large amounts, or, you know, frequently, we're not going to be recovering from our exercise sessions as much. So it just means that subsequent session, we're not going to get the best out of you. So there's that further knock-on effect. So, you know, I always say to clients, there's certain foods. See, going back to that whole comment you said about the PTs that say, don't drink. It's the same when it comes to fast food or crisps or sweets. And I say there's no food that you should strictly avoid 100% of the time, unless you've got a life-threatening allergy. You know, but there are foods that we need to minimize and be wise to. And it's just all about timing and things. You know, if you do your biggest training session of the week is on a Wednesday, you going out and drinking straight afterwards probably isn't the best idea. You're really going to struggle to recover from it, and you're not going to adapt from that session, whether it be strength, power, fitness, etc. You're not going to achieve that. And then are you going to do well in your session the next day? Probably not.
Whereas so if you had a client that trained, you know, had a good session on Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, then they went out, you know, for a late lunch, and then effectively went out drinking for 3, 4, 5 hours. Are you saying that not only would they reduce the results, the effectiveness of the session they just had, they'd also do it for the next day as well?
Yeah, there's that knock-on session, because I think we all know when it comes to muscle soreness, that sort of comes within the 24, 48 hour period, and that's where the muscles recovering from that session, you know, that delayed onset of muscle soreness, you know, that's part of the adaptation process. So we're actually just delaying that further by having a big drinking session. And of course, it just means that when we do come to our next training session, it's just not going to be as good. You know, and one of my actually professors from university, he was doing a study with a rugby team, and it was all just to do with post-match recovery and looking at lower body power output. And he had a couple of outliers within the subject group with the results, and it was just that their recovery was really delayed, to the point that the game was played on a Saturday, and then they were due to train again on the Monday. And most people had recovered up to about 5% of what their baseline figures are. But these two people were way off. So they went back and interviewed those subjects. And basically one of them had gone off for beers that night. So his recovery was heavily delayed. And then one person who had started to recover really nicely in the first 24-hour period then all of a sudden went backwards. And when he was interviewed, he had a big family barbecue where he literally had like 4 or 5 hours on the beers as they were cooking the meat and eating the food. But it just meant when it came to that Monday morning, and by then, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you should be recovered. But these guys really weren't. And it just meant that they couldn't get the best out of their training session. So there is quite a big knock-on effect. And if you're in the city and you're doing that sort of Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever it is sort of thing, getting in the client meetings and socializing and then time with your family on the weekend, it really does have a knock-on effect when you're actually going to be fully recovered and getting the best from your training.
Yeah, and you've also got, we see it with people, and I've experienced it myself. Where you have a drink and you have an awful sleep, and not only do you feel tired, it kind of lasts 2-3 days, and as you get older, obviously it gets worse and worse, doesn't it? But so we see, so you've got the protein synthesis, so they're not actually recovering properly. They're then having a poor sleep, so they should be getting 6 to 8 hours ideally, and they're then getting 4 hours, and it's also rubbish sleep. So yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? But it's definitely something that I think people should understand, and having that understanding might make you kind of think twice about when you put your drinking sessions in. I mean, just as an example, something that we do with our clients is that we get them, and this is a strange one, by the way, because we deal with a lot of CEOs, right? And CEOs are the top of the tree, they're the boss. And when we first started praying, I'm really stressed out because I know I'm on this weight loss program and I've got all these client lunches in, or people are booking these client lunches in for me. So the PA or operations manager will book these piss ups in their diary. And I say to them, but aren't you the boss? Don't you say what you do? And they go, oh yeah, I suppose so. Because they're so used to doing it, it's like part of their culture is for them to go and network and this kind of thing. They don't really think, well, I could probably delegate that one. And suddenly they've cleared, 10 drinking sessions out of their month. And it starts to make a huge difference to their results and to their mindset. So something that maybe everyone that's on this watching the video should consider is that if you are in a position where you're senior, just have a look at your diary. And if you are trying to get results and you keep struggling with it, look at your diary. Is there things that are in your diary that potentially you could delegate to other people? You don't have to do all of it. And you'd be surprised how many people, no matter how senior and no matter how big the company is, don't think of that as an option. They just think they've got to do it all. And they're in this kind of old way of doing things. But if you want to lose weight, as Ed's just told you, you're going to have to start thinking about your alcohol intake, whether it's reducing it or reducing the frequency. So what I'd like to kind of finish with, and there might be a couple of points to finish at the end, would be to talk about, let's maybe look at athletes first. So, when they've got they've finished a tournament, they're periodizing their month or their 3 months, and they've got a celebration at the end. What would be your approach for, the next 2, 3, 4 days after that event with the drinking? And then maybe look at how we could take what you do with athletes and maybe how we could transfer that over to, someone that's not an athlete, but somebody that's trying to get healthier and improve their chances of weight loss, that maybe works in the city or is in a high-powered job. Over to you, Ed.
Yeah, so I think it's quite an interesting one, and it's it is one of those things that during the session, when I say the session, obviously the drinking session rather than the training session, which is obviously the thing that you usually talk about. But if you can control a few things, then it can almost start the recovery process before you've even finished drinking. But that whole thing of 1, 2, miss a few is actually quite a good idea, to just sort of make sure that you're hydrating in between alcoholic drinks, because as we know, alcohol is a diuretic. So one of the big downsides is the dehydration aspect. So just having the odd, soft drink or pint of water in between can help us. And obviously, although they say eating is cheating, making sure that,
especially the rugby circles.
but making sure that the stomach does have a nice lining, and that we are still eating some food in between, obviously preferably good choices. But then once the session's over, it's then how can we sort of start the recovery process, but then minimize damage. So I think, I mentioned earlier about the burger or kebab on the way home. Are there certain things that you can do around that? So, fortunately, sometimes in the team environment, if we're in a hotel or we're at the club, we can have food at the end. So it might be pizzas, but it might be the slightly healthier option of a pizza, a thin base or a slightly better topping, just to kind of stop that negative aspect of going to the kebab shop. And then just little tips as well, like using something like Diurolite or an electrolyte tab, is if you're going out, have a pint of water next to your bed with one of these electrolytes within it. So, one of the big things is that we lose minerals, when we go to the toilet, when we sweat, etc. And they really help us around hydration. So having one of these electrolyte drinks and some fluids before bed, we're already starting the recovery process. And then that just goes on. If you can afford, if it is a weekend, if you can afford a little bit of a lay-in the next day, catch up on that sleep, because like you said, broken sleep, poor sleep is unfortunately an aspect of drinking alcohol. So if we can sort of recover from that a little bit more, or if we can't sleep in, if someone's got kids or they've got an appointment in the morning, etc., and they can't lay in, then can you factor a nap in later on in the day? There's plenty of research around how short naps later on in the day can actually compensate for some of the poor sleep the night before. And then comes to that the morning after food. Can you minimize, similar to that us giving people pizzas in the night sort of thing in the hotel to minimize that poor food choice? Are there things that you can do within your own kitchen, making sure that you've got some good appealing food for the morning after, rather than resorting to your poor choices? So, you could make a fry up in the house, but that's actually from, low fat sausages or, low sugar baked beans, that sort of thing. Some eggs in there, but maybe skip the 4 rounds of toast and just have one or two, but can we make some better choices there to start the refeeding process? We need some carbohydrates coming in, and then continue with the rehydration process, just constantly sipping at fluids throughout the day, whether it be electrolyte drinks or just water. And then if you're a coffee drinker, having the odd coffee, a little bit of caffeine can help with taking the headaches away.
Oh, so there's real good information there. I think maybe what would be a good thing to understand would be, we talk to our clients about, if there could be people watching this, they're thinking, right, I've got to book 2 lunches in next week and a week after. What would be the best choice to tell my PA or, my EA, where would be the best choice for them to have that lunch? So for example, they might have the Italian booked, they might have a Chinese booked. What in your opinion would be the top 2 kind of restaurant choices that people should take if they know they're going to be eating and drinking, where they can maybe get better choices given to them off the menu?
Yeah, I think, any restaurant where you can kind of manipulate what's on your plate. If you're booking it in a buffet or whatever, it's probably not going to be great, because you are going to have that huge amount of excess calories coming in as well. But you say we're like an Italian, it doesn't have to be a huge plate of pasta. It could be, a fresh fish dish, something like that. So I think we can control our calories around that and make some better food choices. But I think importantly, it's as well with these lunches, if they're factored in, it's what we drink at the actual lunches. Are we going to drink some, like you mentioned, wine, or some sort of shot with a low calorie mixer, where you're only going to drink a few of these things? Whereas, or if we go for a lager, you see lager, we tend to drink more and more, and then you've got more excess calories coming in and sugars from it. And then the calories really sneak up. So, it's making the right choices around what alcohol we have. A glass of wine or something like a gin and slimline tonic would be much better than having, bottle or pint after pint of beer or lager.
Perfect. Well, great advice there, Ed. So I think we'll wrap it up now because we've done about half an hour and people with attention span nowadays is quite short. So I think we've covered quite a lot there. So what we're going to do, underneath this video, I'm going to post this probably on LinkedIn, 3 different social channels. So we'll put Ed's details on there so you can look at his website and check out what he's doing. We'll put our website underneath the video as well, where you can kind of check out what we're doing as well. And we've got some kind of free products that we're happy to share as well to people that have watched this video. We've got an alcohol guide, which could be of benefit to people that have watched this today. A grab and go guide for people that are looking for healthy snacks to grab on the go. And there's a couple of different kind of ways that both Ed and I can help you. So do feel free to kind of comment underneath this, ask any questions, and I'm sure Ed would be happy to help you on those side of things as well. So brilliant. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate your time, mate, and see you soon.
Yeah.